Welcome to CPG Vibes. No scripts,
just chat.
I'm Alex Baer.
And I'm Wade Yenny.
Each episode is recorded live, and we talk all things food and beverage, and so much more.
Feel our vibe and search for CPG Vibes on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and make sure to give us a 5-star review.
If you'd like to sponsor our show with your product or service, email us at cpgvibes100@gmail.com.
Now, let's vibe.
All right.
Welcome. To our introduction, it was like a vibe, It just makes
already dancing. We're dancing. That's the energy that he gives off. I'm already dancing in the first 5 seconds, and he's not even Jake. Like Jake makes people dance even more. All right. So not to compare you to Jake, but he's on a whole other level as far as dancing. So
I am not Jake. I can promise you that.
Yeah, can't compete with that. So welcome to episode 126 of CPG Vibes. If you can't tell already, we have our honorary co-host here, Nick Saltarelli, with the co-founder of Midday Squares,
aka Nick Salazar.
Nick Salazar. Nick, that's an inside joke we're going to use for decades to come. It was funny. We have an admin, a great admin with V Driven. And she put it in as Salazar instead of Saltarelli. I guess it auto-corrected. And we're like, Salazar, that sounds kind of badass. That's like the overlord. I am Salazar, the king of chocolate. Anyway, we switched that name. I think it sounds good.
Nick Salazar. Shout out Stephanie. I see you.
Yeah. All right. And so we're going to go through some laundry list items here, and we're going to get to the fun quirkiness, randomness of no script, just chat, and we'll talk about basically anything CPG, right, Nick? Anything.
Mm-hmm. You name it. We're bringing unfiltered, nothing off the table.
There you go. All right. So a couple things. I'm going to shout out some comments here. We're going to go old school. So the comments here in the chat, we have Reza B. Not sure who you are because I don't know your last name. But I see some hand clapping there. Thank you, Reza, for tuning in. We have Stephanie Huey here. Hello from Seattle. Welcome, Nick Salazar. I'm just kidding. Saltarelli. All right. And then we have Hugh Curtis. He's a regular now. Salazar could be a badass dude from the West End of Montreal. Yeah. I could see a Netflix series. Salazar, part 1.
Or I could be like, I also see it as like an overlord from Harry Potter. I feel that.
Yeah, it kind of has that mythical vibe to it for sure. Yeah.
I come in just pumping like this, Nick Salazar.
Yeah. You have like just a, like one of those Nerf guns that shoots midday squares into people's mouths, That would be at like, like basketball games and all that. Instead of shooting t-shirts in the crowd, midday squares, right? Just
100%. And the key though is you can't have it unless you catch it in your mouth. Period.
That's a high bar. You just, can you imagine people, their mouths open, just like waiting? All right. That's a funny visual. All right. So let's get into a laundry list item of things that we are going to mention here. First off, we are the #1 rated CPG podcast in the world. Let's keep it that way. Right, Nick? Let's keep it that way. So make sure to give us a positive 5-star rating on Apple Podcast. Boom, there you go. Also, we have sponsorship and block rates, just like Powerful Energy with Robert Kogan, right? He took advantage of the sponsorships. He grabbed the block of them. He got a huge discount on it. And he's going to be on our show today to talk about powerful energy distribution and also Canada. Canada is a good topic to talk about.
I mean, Canada's just good peeps in Canada.
Yeah. I mean, there's 40 million people. You guys are blowing up. You've blown up there. And you're blowing up in the U.S. So there you go.
Cool.
Yeah. Present tense and future tense. So, and then also we have a Slack channel, cpgvibes.slack.com. And then we have our ongoing sponsors, which is V Driven and Range Me. A little bit about both of them before we get into the meat and potatoes of our episode here and the chocolate of our episode. Meat, potatoes, and chocolate. V Driven is a leading consulting and brand management firm. They specialize in strategic guidance and brand representation for emerging and mid-size brands. They have services from direct sales to key natural retailers, CPG accounting, deduction management. They deliver tangible solutions for brands to achieve their full potential. They understand the importance of cash flow, as you do, Nick, like any company does. So they're offering 25% off on the first month of service with CPG vibes, with V Driven by mentioning CPG vibes to them, or you can just put into the form CPG vibes 25 to get that 25% off. If you'd like to reach out, I'm going to put it up here. Let's see. Again, I'm driving all this on my own because Wade usually is the guy,
driving.
He's the Oz, he's the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain doing all the shit. So vdriven.com/schedule -a -call if you'd like to schedule a call, right? Pun intended, obvious, with V Driven. Our second ongoing sponsor is Range Me. This company is badass, to say the least. They're amazing. They help brands drive awareness, and I'm going to click it over here to remember to click. So remind me to click, Nick, if something's outdated.
Okay. We got to click. Okay, but it's up now. We're good.
Yeah, good. All right. I need your help. So Range Me helps brands drive awareness and engagement with retailers through an easy-to-use platform that has more than 15,000 buyers. That's about, I think, as many hours as you spent on Midday Squares, right? Like 15,000?
Yeah, I mean, at minimum.
At a minimum. That's just in the facility, 15,000 hours. Sleeping under the table.
Oh.
Yeah, Tesla style, Elon Musk style.
Yeah,
So listeners get discounts on Range Me Premium and Pro subscriptions. The savings are insane. Like if you go to the landing page here in the QR code in the bottom right corner, or if you just go to rangeme.com/CPG vibes, they're normal. They have a starter, which is $99 a year. You can do that one. They have a premium where you get more access to retailers to sell your product in. Instead of $13.99 a year, $9.99 a year, $400 savings, and take that $400 savings and buy Midday Squares, right?
No, but like honestly, no word of a lie. Range Me is legit. Like I've gotten to know a few people over there. I think it's like a hidden gem almost. I don't know why people don't speak about it more. Like it's definitely a really serious launch pad to execute. You still got to do the work as brand, but like it's legit.
100%. Yeah, I mean, Genius Juice was with Range Me for many, many years before we closed up shop earlier this year. And you're definitely right. Like you don't really know the value until you use them and realize the access you get. Like there's like direct messaging with buyers and stuff. Like they go on there and
we actually got Hy-Vee off of Range Me.
No way.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So there you go. Case in point, right there, Midday Squares. They are on Range Me. So you got to be too. They have the premium. They also have the pro subscription, which is typically $24.99 a year. And it's $1,700 to increase your business. If you get one PO, you're going to pay off a year's membership of Range Me. Seems worth
irrelevant. Like it's a rounding error on the one PO. That's like, I mean, just think about it. Like it's crazy. Value. Crazy value.
So make sure to go to rangeme.com/CPG vibes. And then last, but certainly definitely not least, is our weekly sponsor. And our weekly sponsor is Powerful Energy Distribution, Sir Robert Cogan. And he really dominates the horseshoe around Toronto, Ontario area. He knows you know the geography much better than me, but that whole area is highly concentrated. A lot of stores. He has tremendous relationships. He's brought on brands. Purple Leaf, he's brought on 7 Teas, which we have right here, and also other notable brands that are in Canada. So I think that's it. I think I got everything. We have our YouTube channel. Last thing, youtube.com/@CPG vibes, which is weird as hell. They have to put an @ symbol in a website, but YouTube seems to be doing well. Have you ever seen the very first YouTube video ever created?
I believe it's something of like a cat on a computer.
No, that's the most popular YouTube video of all time.
No, I've never seen the first one.
So if you just Google, like, or go on YouTube, very first YouTube video, it's a guy at a zoo. talking about the zoo, and it's the most boring fucking video ever. It's so boring and it's such bad quality. Like he did it from a camcorder and piped it into his computer, but it's
I think
interesting.
we were just talking about this before getting on. Like I love where we are in society and technology. Like the fact that we can do a live and that's like a thing.
Yep.
And that used to be controlled by huge media outlets and just where we're going with all of this to begin with is the craziest thing ever. And I'm just so amped to be part of this world that we live in. And it never gets old for me. So I just want to put that out there because I love it too much.
100%. No, it's definitely like a democratization of we can do live video. We don't have to be super, even though you're famous. I don't have to be famous. I can go on here, click a button, talk about whatever we want to talk about. People can tune in, they can get value from what we're doing. And you can also go on different platforms right on your phone. And if someone told me that like maybe 15 years ago, I wouldn't believe that we would have the power in our hands to do something like this and get out to the community. So speaking of the community, we talked offline. Nick is really on a mission today to share whatever is going on in the CPG business to help you guys and gals. This is not a Midday Squares promotional hour, right? They have a lot of promotion already on social media. We're talking CPG, how to bring value, how to help you. Shout out
I'm
your comments.
co-hosting today. I'm really here to fill the seat of co-host.
Exactly. Wade is traveling, so Nick is wearing the hat of co-host. So, what do you want to talk about? Where would you like to start it? I'm going to pass the torch to you.
Pricing, man. People, I was just on a call earlier today, and I the biggest screw up I see over and over, and inclusive of one that Midday Squares made, is that people don't know how to set up pricing early on, specifically like super early. So like, what should they be making in terms of gross margin, and what that selling price is, leading all the way up to what an SRP price is going to be at retail. And I see that mistake happen over and over and over, to the point where I want to drop a little calculator after. We'll do like a Google Sheet, maybe like a calculator that just is open, so that you could just like put in your buy cost of your item. So if you're buying from a co-packer, like what is your net buy price? And it will kind of do the math for you to show you your SRP price, inclusive of your gross margin, inclusive of trade spend and all these types of things, inclusive of the distributor. Very, very important, that piece. And people just mess this up over and over and over and over. And I don't know why no one has just like really drilled in. I'm sure there's a simple tool, but it hasn't come across my desk, and it didn't come across my desk when we were starting Midday Squares. So costing, man, like we were just talking about, I don't want to talk about the brand name that we were just talking about, just because I don't want to reveal what I think the issue is. But when I see great products come into the market, typically my first hypothesis, when they're only selling to like cafes or Erewhon, is that they probably priced everything wrong. In terms of the SRP that they think that they're going to get at like a retailer, let's say they think they're going to get like a $3.99 or a $2.99. By the time it goes through that calculator, it's probably going to be a $7.99 item. And I think, one of the realizations we're having is how crazy hard innovation is when you're at retail, because you're anchored to prices that are set by legacy. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that aspect, but it's hard to lead the healthy movement, because the consumer is so unaware of what their cost is versus SRP. And I'll just say one last thing and I'll throw the mic to you.
Sure.
Most people don't know that to hit a let's call it $2.99 price point, your all-in costs off the top of my head, give or take, whatever, I'm just trying to prove a point here, should be like 80 cents.
Mm-hmm.
That gap from 80 cents to $3.99, the consumer doesn't understand that, hey, if you want to use a syrup that's a little bit better for them and it adds 5 cents, that 5-cent incremental cost equates to $3.25 at SRP. Like, that's how much elasticity leverage is built into how cheap a product needs to be to hit a sub $3 price point. And I see it with when I'm speaking with influencers, man. Like, I'm speaking with like some influencers, and we're just talking about like why it's so difficult to get healthy items, and it comes down to a consumer's not ready to make the decision when they get to the shelf. So they get to the shelf, they think they want to be fucking healthy. Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed swearing on this, but I swore, my bad.
We definitely are. I've already dropped an F-bomb earlier in the episode.
I love it. So they get to the shelf, and they want to be healthy so bad, and they look at your product and it's $5.99 and it's made with the most gorgeous ingredients ever to exist. But there's the $2.99 item for the same grammage right next to them, and they fumble. And they get mad at why is the price so expensive, and that calculator of how many people need to make money off of a product by the time it gets to retail. The reality is that a $1 cost item will end up at $3.99 on the shelf.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to say on this subject, right? It's a big, big subject. But I think like the first step is going into the right stores where people will respect a higher price point, right? Because you have two options. You can either be at a low, cut your margin, compress your margin, maybe lose money on every unit for the sake of revenue. And then you can be in any store you want, right? Or more stores or mass market, or you're in less stores at a better price point, at a higher price point, which is better for your margin. And I think that model is now winning out for emerging brands and natural brands in the CPG space. And that's the model that I recommend to my clients, right? Is everything's changed in the last year and a half or 2 years. Now, obviously, once you get to scale and you're large enough and you're doing big enough runs and you get economies of scale, you can hopefully bring down your cost enough to where you can get to that magical price point and then eventually go into mass market and go outside of just natural and independent. So at the end of the day, like, we went through this with Genius Juice, and it was so fucking frustrating where we had a coconut smoothie, hand shucked coconut meat. Like, people are like, if this is not a coconut water concentrate, this isn't a coconut cream, this is real coconut meat, hand shucked out, water, literally, like the machine extracts it, freshly blended coconut, whole coconut into a coconut smoothie. And I know you know the product, right? You've seen it and all that stuff. Tried it.
I love the taste of it. It's my favorite because it's the actual texture was the best.
Yeah, it's real. And like the brands that do it the right way and the real way seem to get punished. And this is a bigger subject. They get punished in this industry because you have to have a higher price point. And when you have your product in 1,800 Targets or 520 Whole Foods, or even in, let's call it, like 103 Wegmans, right? It could be large, middle, it could be, 5 local stores in your region. People see it on shelf, they see the price, and unless they're educating themselves, they're going to be making a decision based on price and ingredients look reasonable enough. Oh, it's keto or it's low sugar. Oh, it's pretty healthy. Let me get the $2.99 coconut drink with the pulp instead of the $5.99 Genius Juice, or let me get the $1.99 whatever chocolate XOXO, whatever it is, all these whatever brand, instead of getting the midday squares. And so this just happens, and it's frustrating because how do you educate the consumer when you're just sitting on a shelf? And maybe I think social media, right? Another way, that's ways that you guys have gotten around that. Or what have you figured out as a way to get around the education on why someone should buy a higher price product like yours?
I guess I'll be really blunt on 2 things. So, one, you've seen Midday Squares make significant bets to get below $3. right? So we used to be a $3.99 item. We started off with 2 squares. We did a 27% price increase, and we went to below $3 price point, because I don't believe to win massive in your category, I think you could be the leader in price, but you can't be out of whack on price. So you could be the most expensive, but what I mean by most expensive in sub $10 categories is 25 cents, 50 cents, max $1 more expensive. So we've pivoted to what do we believe the consumer perceives as health in terms of healthy, because that's how we're judged by it. And what are we willing to not lower our standards on? And somewhere in between is the truth. Like that's kind of how we looked at our product reformulation. Then we got Daniel on the line over here talking about, when you build a brand loyalty, you can command a price premium. And I do agree with that to a certain extent. I think it matters. I think the sensitivity below $5 items is way higher than below $10 items, below $20, right? Like there's just really big gaps in that. I think if you're selling whey protein and you're in the 39 range, you could be a $59 premium product and really command it. I just think it's harder in the micro dollars to do so. But one way that, we have no choice but to stand out is to build a crazy, ravaging fan base, to exactly Daniel's point of that. One, that the customer wants to support midday squares and they feel like they're buying us like buying from a friend at scale. But two, I think one thing that's not spoken about publicly a lot is the quality needs to trump the next best thing. So we believe no matter what your product is, if you're going to command the upper tier of your product category, and I want to circle back on the thought of, hey, Nick, if you were to do it again, how would you do it? Knowing all the things, and I would love your thoughts too on that aspect, because I have some strong opinions on that. If you're going to command the upper tier of your category, one thing that should happen for sure is if I blindfold you, and I think we've done this at Midday Squares because we hold our R&D standard to this, that you must know that you're eating a Midday Squares without me telling you what you're eating. So the blindfold test is really, really important from a quality perspective. And then how you feel once you consume the product is really, really important. So let's take, for us, what we're seeing in the market, a Reese's Pieces cup. We actually have customers that are switching over to our product from that. And what is the reason? It's like, do you remember your first time having natural peanut butter versus like a Jiffy or like a mass-made maltodextrin peanut butter?
Mm-hmm.
Shocking experience at first, and you're actually unsure of whether you like it or not. Like you're like, whoa, what
it's too real. It's separating. What's this water, like liquidy stuff on top? Why is it separating?
It's just a very shocking experience. And but then the experience goes to, once you consume it, your palate has actually a hard time going back to the other one, because you're like, whoa, it tastes fake, almost like very artificially, very like jelly-like. Like you can almost taste the palm kernel oil textures on your tongue. Like you really taste the difference. And so I think that has to be true for you. If you are trying to separate from quality, it has to be, one, pass the blindfold test. Two, does your customer have a hard time going back to the lower quality thing because it's exposed now for what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, like, we're in an environment where the product has to be, fucking using the F word again, has to be rock solid, and it has to be craveable. The texture has to be really good. The taste has to be on point. And then also how you feel after eating it or drinking it is paramount. And I think like the days of having still out there, right? There's like the sparkling waters that are $1.99 or 99 cents and they're on sale all the time. They're unless they're really differentiated, there's a USP, unique selling proposition or point, you're going to be fighting to the bottom on price. And if there's a taste test, I could tell you right now, if I tasted, you know, LaCroix and Waterloo next to each other, I would not know the difference between those two. But if I had, Spindrift next to Waterloo, I could tell because Spindrift uses real fruit juices and they're probably double the price, right? And that's how they won.
Yep.
So I feel like you got to compete on quality and it's a grassroots effort. It's brick by brick, it's store by store. It's educating, I think there's been comments, educating the managers, giving the managers product, getting your team, getting like you said, getting raging like just obsessive fans that are going to go into the store to buy it. But that's really hard to do. Like what you guys have done on the social media side is really rare and really hard, and you guys are really good at it, and the videos are top notch, from the Cookie Monster breaking in, and I remember that one like especially. But like these days when you don't have the type of social media that, let's say, Midday Squares has, that's the calamity I see. That's really the hardest part, is how do you get a customer to be aware of the quality of your product when it's double the price, when you don't have the money to go everywhere, you don't have the social media. And that to me is like the rub. It's very, very difficult.
Well, I think to your point is, I think it's these conversations need to happen earlier in the thought process. It's like, one, I think gross margin needs to be taken very seriously from the get-go. And price and your SRP is very, very important. I think there's a question here that talks about SRP. Could you pull up I'll read it and just throw it on. Nick Saltarelli, what are your thoughts about setting SRP when it comes to Canada versus US? Canada market has some restrictions when it comes to going national versus capturing revenue opportunity that the US offers on a state-by-state level. Reza, honestly, I think you're talking specifically to beverage and potentially alcohol, because I don't see any of those problems when it comes to Midday Squares. I mean, we've been able to dictate SRP, and you can't do MAP pricing. You can, but I don't think how we police our SRP is we have to have the courage to leave our retailers. So we never allow it's a partnership. So when I say this, it's not from a dictatorship standpoint. I say it with my partners all the time. You guys have what you do, and what we do is we have to have brand integrity. If we do not uphold brand integrity, and brand integrity for us is price power, if we do not uphold that, then what do we have? So we spend all this energy on a brand, and our buyer partners love us for that because of the terms that we bring. And in return, what we ask you is that you can never go below $2 with a Midday Squares when it's on sale. Like, just never. And we don't have the right to ask that. They could legally go below $2, but it's a partnership, and we ask them nicely to do this. And if they can't respect that, then we have to respectfully leave, because they're not respecting how much energy we're putting into a brand. And our brand needs to have pricing power. And so when it comes to the difference between Canada and USA, I think I don't see really a problem on that aspect. We could talk a little bit about how we set SRP, because I have actually a very strong opinion on reverse engineering product R&D versus SRP price, and how that should look at. But to Alex's point, this is not an easy business, and what needs to be solved at store level is we are no longer we've never relied on our retail partners to bring us customers. And I think when you stop thinking that way, everything kind of changes for you. And so back to your point, Alex, is how do you command that? Well, you have to build the fan base. That's the hard work of explaining people, and that's done at a grassroots level. And so that's where it becomes actually really, really strong to launch with like a regional partner. So for instance, like I would much rather try to nail a Florida market with like, let's say Publix being my end goal as my first big one. Why? At least if I go into Publix, I could control my messaging across the state of Florida. It's not like you have to take on a big dog and go east to west. So your messaging can be very condensed. Everything from buying ads could be condensed. Repetition of hearing the brand, your localization of a product. It is the true thing. But what I will say is price. I'm at the point now where I would say I can almost dictate the success of a company if you just tell me your SRP and gross margin from the day you start. Like I can almost predict to the teeth if you're going to survive. Mm-hmm. Why? We did it wrong. And I tell you right now, guys, there's still a 50-50 that Midday Squares makes it. Like it's still a 50-50 shot from here on out. And we've corrected a lot of those things. So if you don't get those right, you're toast.
Yeah. And I think 50-50, no joke, is pretty high for this industry. Usually it's 595, 397, So, but yeah, you guys have come a long way. I want to emphasize, and we're going to get to some of these comments. There are just so many coming in right now. We want to get to you guys and shout you out that the starting margin, there's manufacturing margin, which is how much does it cost to make the product and get it shipped back to your facility, right? That's all involved, like the packaging, the raw materials, the tolling. In Midday Squares case, there's not a tolling, but they have overhead because they make it themselves and get it freighted back to your warehouse for distribution. That manufacturing margin, and then you have, obviously your selling price, your blended weighted selling price across all distributors. So if you sell at, I'm making this up, at $1 to one distributor, and then you have to sell to a different model, right, of a distributor at 120, and it's 50-50, your blended margin, your blended selling price is $1.10.
Yeah. And
there's one thing I want to finish. So when you factor all that in, it's got to be a 60% manufacturing margin at a minimum, because you take trade spend when you're a new brand, right? And you're really being aggressive, or you have new launches, your trade spend is going to be, it could be 20%, it could be 25%. And then you have freight, which is anywhere from 5 to 10%, especially right now. So if you take, let's call it 20% for trade spend, you take 10% for freight, because freight is expensive, especially with lower volumes per unit when you're not doing truckloads. That's 30% gone from your 60%. And now you're down to 30. And I think your point, Nick, from earlier is you underestimate the costs of this business to grow your business, and your margin's not high enough. Your manufacturing margin's not high enough. Your gross margin after freight and trade spend is not high enough. And now you're in the red and you're losing money, and you got to raise more money, which is also hard to do. So anyway, go ahead.
I'll say, I'm going to actually share my screen. I'm going to pull this calculator up that I'd like to share with everyone post.
Are you able to share on here? Because you might have to be the admin.
I see the share.
Oh, it actually allows you. We're finding out new things right now. There should be a share screen. Try that.
Second, I want to just make sure I'm not doing anything stupid here.
Make sure you don't have any other windows open that you don't want people to see.
Yeah,
I won't make any jokes here.
Yeah, I'm putting in fake kind of data here.
So while you're doing that, do you mind if I'm just going to read a couple comments here when you get that together? And if you can't share it, you can also email to me and I can share it on here as the admin. That's the only honor. That's the only power I have, is the admin. I got a couple more buttons here. All right. So a couple comments here, because they're just pouring in. We have Daniel Quinones. The matter at hand is education. Consumers don't trust anyone, almost anyone, these days. That is so true. And consumers are more vigilant and educated about their health, and they're more careful. I think the coolest story to me is Vital Farms. Like, there's a lot of
Oh,
cool stories.
I want to hear about Vital Farms 110%. Then also let me know if you see my screen by any chance.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I have to approve it. So let me show. This is a first. We're going to share the screen. Okay, there we go. There's a calculator. Go for it.
All right. Okay, perfect. So I just want to put this in here. So going back to what Alex was saying is the most important piece is to look at I believe the manufacturing gross margin. Okay, so how I consider manufacturing gross margin is what you are selling. This is your sell-in price, okay, to your distributors, to everybody in your chain, let's call it. And it goes all the way up. So if I just put in here, okay, 0.30 cents, just so everybody, sorry. So that shows me, okay, my distributor is going to list for this price. I'm going to sell it. My sell-in price is going to be this. Then I have my trade spend that's taken off. We could play with this. All right. Then I have my net, my COGS. Okay, let's say that's in there as well too from here. And then my gross margin. Okay, so this is at 57% right now. I believe a manufacturing gross margin should be anywhere from 55 to 65 for you to have a fight. If you're at 55, you have a fighting chance, and if you're at 65, you're in the business. So the point I'm trying to make here is your all-in costs going to your warehouse, ready to ship to the distributor. So whether you manufacture it yourself, you'll have a bunch of costs ready to get a product to ship to the distributor. And if you're buying from a co-man, it has to make it from the co-man to whether it's going to a 3PL yourself. I don't care. Point is all your costs by the time it's ready to go to a distributor is your all-in cost over here. So the point I'm trying to make here is I want to demonstrate everybody that's looking, just look at this number, how fast that number will continue to climb based on 10-cent increments.
It's huge. Yeah, it goes like 3x. It's like 3x.
Okay. Yeah, it just keeps on. So we're talking pennies here when you're under the $3 game. This is shocking for almost all starting brands that I speak with. And that's how I know people are getting this wrong all the time, because when I show them, when I ask them, they're like, yeah, I'm making 60%. And then I show them the calculator and I'm like, oh, really? You're making 60%. So your all-in FOB costs are 60 cents? No, they're $1.10. Okay, $1.10, friend. If you're at $1.10, that means your SRP that you think is $2.65 is $4.99 for the retailer.
Yep. 100%.
And that's where people get punched in the face. And Alex, I'm happy to share this. We could send it out to the users after.
Yeah, we can put the link in the comments, like a shareable link. We got to pause the show for a second because we're going to mention our sponsors, and then we're going to continue your thought here. But we're going to also bring on Robert Kogan with Powerful Energy Distribution. We just want to make sure there's enough time. We don't run out of time on the show. There's a lot to cover here, and we'll definitely get to your comments. We'll shout those out. So ongoing sponsors are V-Driven and also Range Me. We're just going to flash this up there. Range Me, literally just go to rangeme.com/CPG vibes. Midday Squares went with them. They got into Hy-Vee and other retailers through Range Me. So they're legit. Genius Juice was with them for many years. And there's also a QR code on the bottom right corner if you're watching this live. And then we also have V-Driven. And then V-Driven, they do consulting and brand management if you'd like to schedule a call with them. And by the way, massive savings with Range Me by mentioning CPG Vibes. It goes from $13.99 to $9.99. It goes from around $2,400 down to under $2,000 on their premium and pro subscriptions, on their pro subscription, I should say. So make sure you get massive savings when you mention CPG Vibes with Range Me. V-Driven, same thing. You get 25% off. So make sure to go to vdriven.com /schedule-a-call. And then we have our sponsor for this episode. And again, we're going to bring him on right now. He was on a couple weeks back, and we're bringing him back. And that is Robert Kogan. He is the CEO, founder of Powerful Energy Distribution. He focuses on the Toronto and surrounding areas market. And he's going to get in on just some Canadian topics here. Now that we have Nick, he's Canadian. Robert's Canadian. So we got two of the three. I'm American, but we got two of the three. So this is now a majority rule Canadian show for the next 5 to 10 minutes.
We're under Canadian law now.
Exactly. We have to do the national anthem shortly. So what is PFE? They're a binational company, meaning Canada and US, that handles imports, exports for commodity brands and emerging specialty brands. Their expertise is eliminating the real and invisible barriers to the 40 million person Canadian market. Starting with, I don't know if Jake's I'm sure he's gonna have kids. It'll be 40 million plus one, I'm sure. Yeah. And starting with the 8 million Ontario market next door, right across the border from the US. And he's also offering free cases of 7Ts, which are this one right here. This is their beautiful glass. Have you had this product before, Nick?
Nope,
really
never.
Good. Yep, I'll hook you up. And free case of 7Ts and lemonades, one case of cans, $30, one case of glass, $40. So you're getting two cases. And also, Robert's going to offer from his valuable time free consultation sessions, 3 sessions, 1 hour per session about Canadian market awareness. But anyway, for me to speak anymore would delay the fact that I'm bringing him on. I don't want to take away his valuable time. So, Robert, welcome.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks, Nick. It's been awesome listening to you guys. And I got to say, I'm adapting as we move along. So what I got to do is I'm thinking of like that Entertainment Tonight cheese ball presentation, but I got to do it because we can't talk about all these things, but they need to be mentioned. Then I want to put a couple topics that you guys, Nick, you hit some nerves right in the bullseye, especially with that pricing thing that you brought up. Unbelievable. But just to go over what I would call the PFE report, 7Ts is grooving. The 3 pallets disappeared. The reorders are coming in. And one of the things I want to make an honorable mention about these guys, Nick's referring to it in direct and indirect ways, the 75 planets that have to be in alignment to actually get these guys in the store and have the smooth relationship. I could go on a tangent about billbacks, damages, shrinkage, all of those things in that cost model, which is so hard to understand. It doesn't come through enough, with a lot of the LinkedIn, little Facebooky these days, you know what I mean? But it's okay, but hey, look at me. But I'm more interested in, look at me. It took us 8 years to get into Target. We just dropped 150K on a 2-month end cap. We'll let you know how it goes. That's more of the direct LinkedIn stuff that I thought I would be seeing. And it's there. But 7Ts, I got to tell you, getting things done. Josh is on a plane coast to coast to make sure co-packing gets done. That's been going on this week because you can't let the customers down. The retailers, they don't want to let their customers down, and when they allocate shelf space. And I love what you were saying too about the partnership, Nick. That's very important in the respect stuff. So now going down the, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said so important.
Yeah. Going down my entertainment style of like, hi, it's Robert from PFE. Purple Leaf Kombucha. Now, not only is this interesting, because I don't like kombucha, I never will, but I'm not the market. Something that's very important that we learn going along the way. You know what I mean? As much as we like it, should you invest in it? Should you put it on the shelves and reserve that very precious space? Josh and Jeremy at 7Ts taught me a lot about the tea leaf verticals, right down to different parts of the world. Mark and Kendra, the founders of this, the leaf is from one mountain in Kenya, and it's a thing. It's got a GHG ingredient, and I was very surprised and have learned a lot about it since then, and it's great.
Yeah, I think I met one of the founders at like BevNet, God, probably about like 6 years ago, because have they been at it for a while?
No,
And
no,
then they're
that's a different company. That's a Purple Leaf
yeah, I remember it was
iced
called
tea drink.
Purple or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
I went
Okay.
hunting for it at Better Health last week in Michigan.
Right.
Couldn't find it.
So let me ask you, because just for our listeners, again, for those that may have missed past episodes, you're a brand in the U.S. You want to get into Canada. What are the steps? How do they work with you? How do you help them get in? And what's the value that you bring?
The first thing we do is we qualify it and make sure that the ingredients are compliant. That's not the label. That's the ingredients. On the label, there's a reasonable level you don't go past, and that involves health claims and other things that are required. But what really happens is all the products come in English only. They hit the Toronto market. There's a luxury store environment that Nick is very familiar with, as I watched Midday Squares partner up with a particular independent in a very wealthy area of Toronto that I'm familiar with. And
is that the guy that dances in the front with Jake, or is that a different one?
No. This is a store in Toronto, very prominent, and we'll save names for another episode when we address some details about the Toronto, the intricacies of it. But what we do is we get you into stores. The stores that I get you into instantly are Vincenzo's in Waterloo, the Harvest Wagon, which is at Yonge and Summerhill, which is pretty much ground zero for Rosedale, Forest Hill, Yorkville. It's right there. You're going to get tested very well. Like we're being tested right now with 7Ts and a few other items through Powerful Energy in that cooler and on the shelf right now, ground up. That was my next item on my entertainment list. So we got ground up. That came in from Calgary, actually. We got dope coffee. That's in from Alabama. So take those two. We get the samples. Beth tastes it. Beth's mom tastes it. I taste it. Okay. If they're in LA, I get you taste it. Then we get everyone to taste it, and then we put it on the shelf in these stores. Then the organic process happens. There's this magical moment. I call it the synapse. Richard Moniz is my guru now for giving me this education. And it's the magical moment of the reach, the grab, and whether it happens again, like Nick and Jake and the partnership has done there. They put the effort into the content, the ingredients, combined with a marketing image and a very wholesome. It's a collection, it's a magic that turns into a regiment, not a trend, but a regiment where it's part of your day. Notice the name, Midday. So then we get it in there. And then if we get traction, we go right up to Eco Ideas, TC up at Eco Ideas. They do all the label compliance. We get everything done. Here's the way I describe it. You can buy a first-class pod to Sydney, a first-class ticket to LA. You can go Spirit, or we got a knapsack and a hitchhiker thumb. The first-class pod to Sydney goes like this. You got to have 50K ready to blow now if you want to be beside Nick and Jake in the Acosta aisle, in the Advantage aisle. He's laughing. Are you laughing because this is so true, or are you laughing because...
No, okay, we don't fly 50K, but yeah, continue.
No, but I'm from real estate, Nick. So my job is to make sure that you're not crazy, and if you are crazy, we're not going to go starting to spend the money and bring you into an entrepreneurial sinkhole.
No, you're so right. You're so right. I agree with everything you're saying.
Like when I met Mark and his wife Kendra, the first thing I said is, "You're crazy. Why do you want to do a beverage?" And like a real estate qualification meeting, prove to me you have the money to do this, or let's not waste our time.
Yeah.
So, but as you astutely ascertained, the sleeper pod to Sydney, 20 grand for 12 hours. That's going full scale trade show, retainer with the brokers, getting your DSD set up, all of your projected trade spend discounts, the amputations that come back with your bill backs and all that stuff. But to answer your question, Alex, we get there and then we offer the brand what they want. And when the brand tells us what they want, we execute it accordingly.
Love it. So yeah, one other questions. We're running short on time. I want to leave some room at the end. Any brands in a couple minutes here, the time we have, any brands that any types of categories that you're really looking for right now that you're hot on, you think would do well in the Canadian market, just for all the founders and everyone listening in? What's your wish list?
Interesting question, because in a sense, there's too much saturation in many categories, Alex. So I would say, I don't want to sound like, hey, bring me all the brands, because we can only do so much. But the brands, let me turn the question over to, which brands are we focused on? Natural health wellness brands that are going to have traction and meet the requirements and the criteria on the vertical. Most importantly, the people, and a lot of the things that Nick was talking about, understanding the cost model and what you're getting into. So we are in our beverage world, and I don't want to overstep it. So we got 7 Teas, we got Purple Leaf Kombucha, and there is a plant-based shake opening that has been sort of hard to fill, but that's another opening that is going to be filled up soon. And then there's the health grocery items, but I'm really focused on upcycle. I guess that's the answer.
Cool.
I like
Great
the
answer.
upcycle category.
Love
because
it. Love it.
Upcycle, it's just so good news. And if you do putts on YouTube before you go to bed and realize what the meat industry is doing to the planet, among other 1,000 things, it makes you want to try to help upcycle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It makes you sort of want to do it.
It's the eco-friendly portion of it. So we're pretty much out of time because we got 5 minutes left in the show. But if someone wants to get a hold of you, Robert, LinkedIn is the best way. But then, literally, I think you heard him. Any natural brand, any brand that's super clean, upcycled, eco-friendly, sustainable, that's really a great match for you, sounds like.
Yeah. And lastly, I want to pay homage to Nick. The pricing problem, my next episode is going to be allocated to one of the brands. But after that, we should talk about that Canadian thing, because there are pricing disasters that we deal with in that broker DSD model. I want to do a shout out to Reza, who's been on the chat. Reza and I are working on, quite frankly, disrupting it, because the D2C is basically taking over.
Yeah.
It's an old man game, and we can't really afford it anymore. And I have a question I want to end with for you, Nick, before and then I will say goodbye and listen, like a talk radio caller in.
Yeah.
Line extensions, you just had one, and I'm sure they're on the list, right?
Yep.
But I'm curious, do you guys focus strictly on the line and the extensions? And how do you react to all the suggestions for new lines?
Oh, yeah, I have a hard. We don't listen to anything. If I had a penny for where our retailers would have taken this company, we would be bankrupt. And so, you have to remember the retailer's there to get the best possible thing in front of their consumer, and your job as a brand is to not go bankrupt and scale successfully. And so, do I have dreams of all sorts of stuff that we can do? Yes. All that we can handle is a chocolate top midday squares. And so if our line extension can't be to the point now where, because we're fighting with the fridge, we will not even entertain doing a B SKU. So I think, especially in CPG, you could do A SKUs. And if you're buying data, an A SKU is typically, if you're in ice cream, let's just call it's chocolate and vanilla. Let's just call it an A SKU. Then you can do B SKUs, and you can even do C SKUs. And a lot of time, big CPG will do C and Bs in order to do shelf space blockage. We can't afford that. So when we're going to pitch Target, I have to project how our turns are going to be better than the X amount of space that exists on a shelf. And although Midday Squares would love to put out a coconut chocolate, it's not an A SKU. And so we have to be focused on only A SKUs. And so the answer is just like no, Robert, because we're not in a position to win right now based on the fragility of the business. It has to be only Midday Squares with a chocolate top.
And a classic answer that should almost be edited and given to every founder that's looking at 8 SKUs in a new line and coming up with 4 more SKUs. So on that note, that was a great answer. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks for it. I appreciate it, Robert.
Nick and Alex, thank you for the time, and to be continued.
Definitely. Robert, thank you so much. Take good care. Have a wonderful weekend.
Caller number 4, thanks for coming on the line today.
Yeah.
Cheers,
take care,
guys.
brother. Right. All right. And again, if you'd like to get in touch with Robert Kogan, just LinkedIn message him. Powerful Energy Distribution, handles the Canadian market. He knows so much about it, as you could hear just from him being on for a few minutes. So it's interesting. Yeah, because I remember when you guys first launched, it was 3, right? Then there was 4, and then there was 5. Even with a
For the
3,
record, Alex, when we first launched in Canada, it was 1.
it was 1. Okay.
1.
Got it.
And I could talk a little bit about that experience too, because, but I'll pass the mic. I don't want to cut you off.
Sure. Yeah. I guess I'm thinking US, right? From what I remember. So even like 1 in Canada, 3 in the US, way less than what most people launch when they first come out the gate. They try to come out the gate hot. They want to offer everything to everyone. And listen, not to compare you to someone like Coke, right? 2 different things, but Coca-Cola had 1 SKU for over 70 years, right? And built it into a billion, probably $1 billion business at that point with the 1 SKU. And it's really the same thing. If a big company like Nesquik or Coke or whoever it is, Harmless Harvest had 1 SKU or 2 SKUs for a very, very long time, the bigger size and the smaller size, 8 ounce and 16. And they built it into $100 million business. It goes to show you it's quality over quantity. And the clip that you talked about that, Nick, is definitely going to be cut, edited, not edited in a bad way, edited in a good way to show just that clip. And we're going to blast it onto our Slack and onto our LinkedIn for CPG Vibes. Because I think, like, usually the simplest answer is the right answer, I feel like in business. And the most common sense thing is the best answer. And common sense is start with less. Don't go too crazy, right?
So we were thinking about launching with 3 originally, being naive. So I want everybody that's listening to know, like,
sure,
we didn't have it all figured out. It's 6 years now we've been going at it, so I have so much scar tissue that I'm coming from, and I still don't have it all figured out. We make Midday Squares is a long process of undoing mistakes while trying to be more wise every day. But what I will say is, a mentor of ours early said this to us, and it was true. Launching a 1 SKU business is going to be the most miserable experience you will encounter, because nobody's going to want to touch you. Okay. Not a distributor want to touch us. Not a retailer want to touch us, because they don't want to give you, it's so counterintuitive. I can't. So they want 2 to 3 slots in order for the consumer to be able to, like, not get lost on a shelf, but yet they won't give you 2 to 3 slots of the same flavor. So you're going to have to, like, fight tooth and nail, and it makes no sense, right? You're like, why would you accept 3 flavors for me in 3 slots? Why can't we just, like, be really good at 1 flavor and we get 3 slots? Like, let's just be focused.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to get no and no. So think about this. We had to get Whole Foods Canada to give us a shot with 2 slots of the same flavor, and then we had to spend 60 days begging for a distributor to hold us because we were only 1 SKU. And it got down to the point where I looked at the buyer and I'm like, brother, like, nobody wants to hold us. So I don't know how to get you this product on the shelf. And, he believed in the product. Shout out Whole Foods Canada for giving us that shot. But the point is I'm trying to make is it's brutally hard when you're 1 SKU. That being said, I think we would have been bankrupt if we launched with 3 SKUs. There's a lot of times, especially because we were forced into having to build a manufacturing plant, only having to focus on 1 SKU for the first 16 months of the business, like, was a really huge blessing in disguise. And guys, we launched with the first 2 wrong SKUs again. If I would do it again, you got to go mainstream. Don't try to get cheeky with it. It's just my opinion.
What was your first SKU?
Brownie batter was the first one.
Okay, and then the next 2 was the almond.
Yeah, right. Which are 2 lowest performers. And then we went to cookie dough, and then we went to peanut butter chocolate, and the first SKU should have been peanut butter chocolate.
Right, because that's just, everyone knows that. It's the Reese's generation, all that.
So when we launched cookie dough, just so everybody knows, Why did we know it was going to be a smash hit? So how do you know something's going to be an A? One, get the data. If you can't afford spins and you can't afford Nielsen's, let me tell you, speak to enough people on LinkedIn in the industry, you will get the data. Someone's going to get it to you for free. What you're going to notice is in every category that we studied, cookie dough, if it existed in the category, was either the number 1 selling SKU or the number 2 selling SKU.
Interesting.
So if it existed in ice cream, it was number 1 or 2. If it existed in ambient, it was number 1 or 2. If it existed in bars, it was number 1 or 2. That tells me, hey, we should probably launch a cookie dough, no?
Yeah. No, I think, and I'll say this much before, because we're going to give away this prize in about 30 seconds here. That is my favorite SKU, is the cookie dough. It's the color of it, like the yellow just really popped. My least favorite is the almond one. I don't know why. I don't like the texture. It was awkward, and like it didn't have that strong taste. Like it didn't punch through, like doesn't punch you in the face.
Yeah.
The cookie dough, the texture, the intermittent chocolate chips, the softness of it with the hard, it just works. And then the peanut butter obviously just works because it's peanut butter
crunchy
and chocolate.
peanuts killer too. I mean, like for me, that's right now in the data, it's flying. Like it's just going.
Yeah, the crunchy peanut butter. I've seen it in Target. I like that one, but the peanut butter one for me, just the OG it just does it for me. Okay, so let's go. But either way, kicking ass. You're learning.
Surviving. I like to use the word surviving and thriving, but don't ever forget the word surviving.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing is you've also pivoted really quickly. Like if you knew something wasn't working, you're like, oh shit, we fucked up. Okay, let's pivot quickly and be agile to like correct this mistake. Like you said a couple minutes ago, like removing the mistakes and adding successes. Like it's addition by subtraction. And once you subtract out, there's more room to add, if that makes sense.
And the worst thing is death by slow cuts. Like I always tell our team internally, guys, we're not going to die slow. We're not going to die slow. We're going to die quick or we're going to win.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So let's go to our prize here. And by the way, no script, just chat. But do we want to have a second winner for a box of midday squares?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, of course. With great pleasure.
Sweet. And then you want to do the crunchy peanut butter? Is that the one? Okay. Sweet. Which is an awesome flavor. So we're gonna award 2 winners. We're gonna have 2 different questions. One from me, one from Nick. In the minute, I'm gonna read the sponsors here. Nick, you can think of what question it is. Maybe it's what's your alter ego last name that we came up with on this episode. It could be that one.
Wait, what do I got to do, Alex? We're asking a question.
So you ask a question. Whoever the first person is to answer in our audience in the comments will win the prize. And it's got to be a question something that we brought up in the episode, something mentioned, a fact, a location, the fact that your alter ego last name is Salazar, so you can't use that anymore.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I understand. Okay, yeah. You go, and I'm thinking about it.
Okay, yeah. You need about a minute because I just pounced this on you. So let me go through our sponsors here on CPG Vibes. Deep breath. So we have 2 ongoing sponsors. We have V-Driven. V-Driven is a leading consulting and brand management firm, and I'm going to be clicking that over. There it is. And they specialize in strategic guidance and brand representation for emerging and mid-sized CPG brands. I might need an oxygen mask for how much I'm speaking. Offering services from direct sales to key natural retailers, CPG accounting and deduction management. They deliver tangible solutions for brands to achieve their full potential. They understand the challenges with cash flow. So make sure to review the spreadsheet that Nick just showed. And then number 2, you can save 25% by mentioning CPG Vibes. And then I'm going to do Range Me, our weekly sponsor. Then we're going to go to your question here. It looks like your brain's moving.
I got it. No, I got my question for when you're ready.
Yeah. The wheels are turning. So Range Me, they help brands drive awareness and engagement with retailers through an easy-to-use platform. There's more than 15,000 buyers. Midday Squares, they are a customer of Range Me. Genius Juice was a customer until we closed up earlier this year, but nevertheless, we were a customer for years with Range Me and many, many other thousands of CPG brands. They are the gem of the industry when it
Squares
comes.
closed Hy-Vee off of Range Me. I think that's isn't that the sponsor of the whole thing? We closed a great retailer because of Hy-Vee.
There you go. That's the headline. So it works. It works, Nick, right?
It
so
works.
Listeners can get discounts on Range Me Premium and Pro subscriptions. Just go to rangeme.com/CPG vibes. Their premium is normally $13.99. It's $9.99 if you get it through CPG Vibes. And their Pro is normally $24.99, $16.99. It's literally a rounding error. For that's like one layer palette of chocolate, right? For Midday Squares, right? Like $1,000, you know? So just go for it, buy it. You're gonna get so much value out of it. You'll close accounts with it and you'll build your business and you'll get your return so quickly by signing up with Range Me. So go for it, rangeme.com/CPG vibes. Then we have our weekly sponsor, which is Powerful Energy Distribution. Go to Robert Kogan. He's your man if you want to expand in Canada. Make sure to LinkedIn message him. Deep breath. Okay. So let's do the first, because you're on, the first prize can be Midday Squares. Okay.
Perfect.
So you do the question. I have my question for the 7 T's and PFEs portion.
Right.
What is your question? First answer wins a box of
When
crunchy.
Midday Squares started, what was our pack size? So how many squares came in a single pack?
Oh, when you first started. Okay.
Yeah. That was
You mean in the caddy or in the actual?
No, the actual individual.
Okay.
Yeah. We discussed it in the early part of the show. So I'm curious to see.
Well, shit, I remember getting it from Jake for the first time from a Hollywood hotel where he was staying. He gave me one before he left town.
Justin Lloyd, we got it, baby. It was 2.
2. All right. So that was so fast. That was a record. That was fast. Yeah. All right. So hold on here. Hold on. Because it comes up different on LinkedIn than it does.
I'm looking on our platform. On Restream, I see Justin Lloyd as number 1. Do you see the same thing?
Justin Lloyd is number 1. Okay. I misheard you. So you're going to get the Midday Squares.
He'll get you the address and you'll get it to me.
Yep. So make sure just email CPGvibes 100 at gmail.com and we'll connect you with Nick and you can claim your prize and they will ship out those delicious squares to you. All right. So my question is, it's kind of a hard one. This is for the 7 T's. It might be too hard, man, but I was mentioning an example of product quality when it comes to sparkling water. So I mentioned LaCroix, as you guys say up there.
I don't even remember.
So there's LaCroix and there's Waterloo. I'm like, they're kind of similar to me. So I couldn't tell the difference. But what is the sparkling water beverage that I said really competes on quality? It's a higher price and I love it. What is the name of that brand? I said it very quickly in the beginning, and maybe in the middle of the episode. What brand is that? It's a hard one.
Yeah. And if it becomes too hard, I know how to take that question and make it a little bit easier. But we'll see how that goes first.
I guess we underestimated our audience. Justin Lloyd, guys, back to back, baby.
Oh my God.
He's got the 7 T's. Now, also for 7 T's, it needs to be in the continental US. It has to be in the 48 states. So make sure, Justin, I think you are, but if you're not, let us know and we can give the prize to someone else. So, and then Midday Squares, you'll ship to Dubai, wherever.
No, we only do the continental US and Canada.
In Dubai, it would melt pretty quickly. So that's the problem there. All right. So make sure to email cpgvibes100 at gmail.com. First, we just want to give a big I'm already standing at my stand-up desk, ovation to Nick Saltarelli, co-founder of Midday Squares, for being the co-host. All right.
Let's go. Standing in for Wade Yenny.
Thank you, my man, for being on, sharing your wisdom, taking your valuable time. Thank you. Thank you. Love you, brother. Thank you so much.
Love you too, Alex. It means a lot. Thanks for having me.
And just next week, before we adjourn, we have this is an exciting one that you should catch as well. It's our expert series, volume 3. So it's July 26th, right? Friday at noon. They're called the Brands, Brokers, Buyers, the Triple B special edition. We're going to have Ali Schumann from CA Fortune. We're going to have Darren Viscount from Bristol Farms. We're going to have Jeff Church, who is the previous CEO and co-founder of Suja Juice, and he led that entire acquisition. And we're going to have Karen Danujaja, hopefully I'm pronouncing her name right. She is the CEO and founder of Bloom, which is now in Target and other great stores. So that's it, guys.
Let's go.
Nick, take care, brother.
Yes, I will drop the calculator for y'all. I'll send it to Alex. So if you guys want the gross margin calculator, message the CPG Vibes email, and I'll make sure to get it. I can't promise I'll get it to him today, but I'll get it to him by some point early next week.
Yep. We can also drop it in like the chat as a kind of a shareable file that anyone can access, something like that.
Yeah, it will be a public Google file, so it's easy peasy.
Sweet. All right, everyone. Well, hope you enjoyed CPG Vibes. Nick, you're the man. Thank you again for being on. Take good care. Have a wonderful weekend.
Kill it all.